And now, okay. Yeah, we're back. I think we're live again here, folks. And now I'm going to take a moment now and bring my guests back on. If I can work on doing that through Skype. There we go. Let's go for, I think this is, looks like Teresa first. We'll get you on there, Teresa. Whoa. A little loud. Hey, Dan, is that you or Teresa?
That's me.
All right. Okay, now we'll get Teresa on the line as well. I'm going to turn off the phone.
I'm not sure if y'all can hear me, though.
Oh, I can hear you. Yeah. Can you hear us?
Yes, perfectly.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, well, we're back on track, and we're back on the show. Oh, my goodness. You know, there could be a reason that someone doesn't want the story of Jesse James and the Templars to go over this air, but we're going to try to not panic, and we're going to get the word out here. So, gosh, Dan and Teresa Duke, thank you guys for hanging in there with me on this unique Sunday night. I hope we got Peter Davenport's broadcast in on the first part of the show before the Spreaker kicked out on us. So welcome back. Thank you again for agreeing to come on our show tonight and tell us a little bit about your great-great-grandfather, Jesse James.
All right. Thanks for having us on. And I'm glad that Mark Eddy connected us. In fact, we're going to be on his show this Tuesday night on Nightline with Mark Eddy and Barbara DeLong. So I was glad he connected the two of us, and
yes,
it's a pleasure to talk to you.
Well, and Mark was commenting during the break when we were off the air. He says, technical problems? I was furiously texting Mark back going, yeah, but don't panic. I have my towel. You know, the old Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe. You know, the most important thing to carry with you is a towel. So,
Yeah.
So you guys again are out in Texas, right?
That's right.
And tell us, is that where both of you, you are brother and sister, I understand, not husband and wives. I just want to clarify that for some people who might not know. You guys, along with another brother, are the siblings of the great-great-grandfather Jesse James.
That's right.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about that family history. That's very fascinating.
Okay. Well, we had heard this story growing up all our lives. My mother had heard the same. Our late mother had heard the same story. And sometime in the 90s, my mother wanted to get down to the bottom of it. You know, you have the family story, and then there's traditional history that doesn't, and they don't match. You know, traditional history claimed that Bob and Charlie Ford assassinated Jesse James in 1882, shot him in the back of the head. And our story was that he faked his death and was in Texas and lived his life to a ripe old age of 97 in Falls County, Texas, a little town called Blevins. And he's buried there. So Mom wanted to find out which story was true, our story or the traditional story. And she started digging. We had family photos. She took our family photos to 3 separate forensic photographic analysts that were experts. One was the Texas Department of Public Safety, which is our version of the state police. She took it to their forensics lab in Austin. They verified that our family photos matched the known photos of Jesse. And then she took it to the Austin, Texas Police Department Forensic Photographic Lab. They verified our photos matched Jesse. And the third group she took it to was a group out of New Jersey who were at the time, they were the world's leaders in facial recognition technology. Later they were bought out by a company called Identix, but they also verified that our photos matched historically known photos of Jesse and his family members. So Mom was excited. She contacted the people at the James Farman Museum in Missouri, and they weren't, we thought they'd be excited to find out Jesse didn't die at the hands, he wasn't assassinated in 1882, and they didn't want to hear it. They didn't want anything to do with that, and which shocked us, but because of that, it led us into deeper research. We thought, okay, we've got to prove this once and for all. We've got photographic forensic experts verifying our photos match Jesse's. So we started digging up every record we could find, census records, birth and death certificates, and all kinds of records.
Now, let me just ask right there, Dan, because you are telling us then basically that you have some old family photos, like we all keep from generation to generation, that were rumored to be in your family, Jesse James, for generations. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. And of course, this would be, was Jesse James's real name, and your name is Duke because of how?
Well, Jesse James was his real name. He took the alias James Lafayette Courtney. And then my mother's, his daughter, Ida, married my great-grandfather, William Dorset. And then they had my grandfather who married my grandmother. They had my mother, and Mom married my dad, Joe Duke. And that's how I get the Duke surname. But we're direct descendants of Jesse.
Well, that's good. I just wanted to kind of show that provenance there of how the family line ends up to you folks. And basically you said that you've got these photographs that were, basically in your family known to be Jesse James, and then you actually got them forensically examined, right?
That's right.
Now, when these photographs were examined, were these photographs post-dating his supposed assassination, or was this something photographs that when he was younger?
We have photographs from before and after the assassination, the alleged assassination. Okay,
good. That's what I was wondering, because obviously people could say, well, if they got young photographs, that doesn't prove that he wasn't killed, in 1882 or whatever. But indeed, you've got older photographs. How old did Jesse James end up being before he passed on?
He died in 1943 at the age of 97.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. He lived to see a lot of history. I mean, he was part of history, but he also got to see a lot of history. So, and we've got, I think the earliest photo the original photo that we have of him was from 1871 or 2. And it was a daguerreotype, a tintype of him. And then we've got photos from, like one of the big photos we got, my mother found it. It was Jesse, Frank, Zerelda, Jesse and Frank's mother, their stepfather, and several other family members. And it was at Jesse's farm in Blevins, Texas. And one of the reasons we know it was in Blevins, the house matched and other things, but one of the men in the photo matched a friend of ours, his grandfather or his great grandfather, who lived in Blevins, Texas, and he never traveled anywhere.
Oh my!
He said the guy he just didn't like to travel, and he wouldn't. He lived on his farm and died on his farm, and he's in that photo, positively matched by it. And the friend of ours who matched it was he's a game warden, and now he's I think a sheriff's deputy in Pecos County. But he told us that's definitely his great grandfather. And there's other people and other markers in the photo that verify that it was on Jesse's farm in Blevins, Texas, and not anywhere else. So.
Yeah. Oh, you've got multiple angles to verify this story. This is going to be great. I can't wait to get into the meat of the matter here. And we've got probably 4 minutes before we get to our second break, but this is really our first break, you and I. This is fascinating stuff. So he literally lived to almost be 100 years old and died in 1943. Just think of the changes that he would have seen in his lifetime. Was he a character that basically kind of stayed to himself after a period of time and really didn't become a public figure then?
Yeah, he didn't really become a public figure. He was well known in his area just because, there were a lot of, during the Civil War, he rode with a group called Quantrell's Guerrillas. And a lot of those the guerrillas, at the end of the Civil War, all the Confederate soldiers were granted amnesty. But the guerrillas were hunted down and branded outlaws. If they were caught or turned themselves in, they were to be executed. So, none of that group, including Jesse, he tried to turn himself in at the end of the Civil War, and he got a bullet through his chest. Somehow he survived that. But they were outlawed, and a lot of the guerrillas who fought with him eventually made their way into the same area. And we were told by a lot of old-timers, there were a lot of Quantrell's guerrillas who lived in Blevins, up and down Deer Creek where Jesse lived. And it was just, they had a buffer. They kept low key, but they were also well known in their area.
Yeah. Now, who was Quantrell's guerrillas?
Quantrell, it was William Quantrell, and during the Civil. See, a lot of people don't realize that before the Civil War officially started, the fighting in Kansas and western Missouri had already been going for 10 years. There were, groups from Kansas would raid Missouri, and then the people in Missouri would want revenge, so they'd go back and raid the guys in Kansas. And it got more and more brutal as the years went on. And when the Civil War opened up, it was basically like William Quantrell. They had a black flag, which signified no quarter. Any male of fighting age that wasn't, that was fighting against them, they would kill them on sight any way they could. And it just got very brutal. They didn't kill women and children, but they killed any male of fighting age. So I guess that means around 14. When Jesse started, he was 14 years old. So it's almost like a brutal, it was very different times.
And when they tried to surrender, they weren't considered like legitimate soldiers in the eyes of the state, Missouri.
Yeah.
And they were denied. They wanted to come forward and, start their life over and fresh. And they were denied amnesty. They weren't allowed to surrender like the other soldiers. So they tried to step forward and, they wanted to get back to a normal way of life, and they were denied it and hunted and, harassed. And
I'll bet.
They were.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we got to take a break right now at the top of the hour. So we will come right back here with Dan and Teresa Duke talking about their great-great-grandfather, Jesse James, in just a moment.
Looking for creative ways to get your company out in the public? How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
If you like it hot, real hot, then heat up your meals with Bumblefoot hot sauce.
Get your Bumblefoot hot sauce today. The sauce, Bumblicious, and the 4 million Scoville unit Bumble. We're going in hot, real hot, coming out even hotter.
Keep the milk nearby and tantalize your taste buds tonight.
Bumblefoot hot sauce, available now at kajans.com.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother is watching.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the place have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
Hey everyone, I'm John Edwards.
And I'm Stacey Edwards. Together we're taking over Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio, where we're going to bring our own experiences of the paranormal and talk to the best people we can find to help bring you answers to your strange tales.
We're here to entertain your need for weekend woo! So tune us in at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, where we can all get a little spooky together.
Spaced Out Saturday nights right here at spacedoutradio.com.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at mightymoosebeard.com today.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/spacedoutradio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
Are you an experiencer of something strange that can't be explained? Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESA. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines report. We are independent and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines report.
Hey Space Travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I'm bringing you the woo every Monday through Friday on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going all out to bring you the strangest, oddest stories and subjects I could find for your entertainment. Why? Because when we hit peak woo, I know I've done my job. So come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com, 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, and together, my friends, we own the night.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio. I'm your host, the paranormal lawyer, Michael W. Hall. Thanks for joining me. We welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates, WQEE 99.1 FM in Newnan, Georgia, and UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans. And on the additional side, we're very proud to have everyone on Revolution Radio. Don't forget, you can always check our archives for free at any time at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And just do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. That's Karen. Hey, Karen, thanks for a warning there. I will finish up my little announcement. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store, and catching up on the SOR Newswire and so much more. I'm sorry about the interruption on the pop-up there, because we had to restart our show from scratch because of a glitch in our little system. So whenever that does it, Karen comes back on and reminds me that we got to be careful. So that's what we're going to do here. Dan and Teresa, are you there?
I'm here.
Yes.
Nice. Welcome back to the show. This is, we're just getting started here, so we're going to have a lot of fun talking with both of you about what is happening here with the whole idea of, you're saying Jesse James, your great-great-grandfather, was literally not assassinated. Can you walk us through the story of what the traditional idea was? Well, first of all, even before we do that, can you tell us about Jesse James, maybe the real stuff about him, and how indeed he became so notorious? Let's start there.
All right. Well, when he was 13 or 14 years old. As I'd mentioned earlier, the fighting between Kansas and Missouri was just horrible 10 years before the official beginning of the Civil War. He was too young to fight. His brother Frank James was older, and he was fighting with Frank was fighting with the the legitimate Confederate forces. Jesse stayed at home. He was plowing in his fields. Some Kansas raiders, jayhawkers, rode on to their farm, strapped him to his plow, severely beat him, went to the farmhouse. They pushed his pregnant mother around. Some accounts claim that they strapped her to a tree and whipped her. And then they hung his stepfather, Dr. Samuels, Reuben Samuels, they hung him by the neck trying to get information out of him. They wanted to know where Frank was. He wouldn't tell. And they hung him until he had permanent brain damage after that. And, Jesse, right or wrong, he wanted revenge. And he found the only group that would let a boy at his age fight, and that was Quantrill's guerrillas. And he made a name for himself during the war. He had no fear, and he was very good at killing the enemy. And that his legend kind of grew from there. After the Civil War, they weren't granted amnesty like normal soldiers were, so they were outlawed, and I guess they had two choices: either leave the country, actually three choices: either turn yourself in and die, be executed, leave the country, or live up to the outlaw brand and become an outlaw, and they chose the latter.
Yeah. Well, tell us what was the beef 10 years before the Civil War that these guys were dealing with back then? Was it slavery? Was it something else?
It was basically the free state versus slave state debate. And a lot of people, even if they didn't own slaves, they didn't like the government telling them what they could and couldn't do. And I'm sure it got a lot deeper than that. And as you know, on either side, either side, right or wrong, they get people, preachers, local preachers, like there were preachers all through the South preaching pro-slavery, and preachers in the North, both sides were demonizing the other side. But when it came down to it with the guerrillas, most of those guys, it wasn't about politics. With them, it was, getting revenge against the guys who attacked them. And the guys who attacked them fought over here, so they were going to join the group that fought their enemies. And it was more of a turf war with that, and the free state versus slave state played a role and started the attacks. But with Jesse and a lot of the other guerrillas, it had nothing to do with that. They were getting revenge against the people who burned their farms.
Yeah.
And attacked their families. So, like, for example, with the James gang, most people who knows anything about the James gang, they know the younger brothers fought or rode with them. So it was the James Younger gang. The Youngers, before all the trouble started, they backed the Union. They wanted free people. They didn't back slavery, didn't support it. They supported the Union until their father was riding on the road. He was going into town to take care of some kind of business, and some Union soldiers or Union-backed guerrillas, one of the two. The accounts vary on who exactly it was, but they fought for the Union. Some men came out, robbed him, and murdered him. And that was what made the Younger brothers, who backed the Union, fight for Cointreau's guerrillas, because they wanted revenge.
Okay, now were you talking about the Younger brothers being the Younger James brothers, or are they called Younger, the family?
Oh, their family name is Younger.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify there. So you're talking about two different families in the James gang, or was it just the James gang?
It was the James brothers and the Younger brothers, and there were other men like Charlie Pitts and different George Shepard. They had different, other gang members, but a lot of people recognized them as the James gang or the James Younger gang.
Okay, all right. I'm glad we clarified that. How many people were involved in this? Was this like a 20-man kind of thing? Was it 10 or less, or how many?
It varied. They had their core group, which were the James boys and the Younger brothers. And then they had, different robberies included different numbers of men. Sometimes they would have the core group with 5 or 6 other men, and other times it was smaller. Sometimes it wasn't even the entire core group. And then they were also accused of a lot of robberies that are iffy. A robbery would happen and it would be attributed to them whether they did it or not. And then again, there were also places where the gang would split up, just like guerrilla tactics, and they would hit 2 or 3 different targets within several hundred miles of one another on the same day. And they were all attributed to the James gang, and it just added to the confusion for the people trying to catch them.
Yeah. And these were, what was the motivation for were these bank robberies? Is that what they were?
Yeah, they robbed.
And train.
Which was for money or for gold, or what were they robbing the trains for? Just like a bank?
Yeah, a lot of times it was money, gold, silver, and I don't have any proof on other items that they may have been robbing, but sometimes I wonder if they didn't have if they weren't after other, maybe possibly even information in some cases. But yeah, basically it was just for money. Hitting some banks, they would net $60,000, which back in those days was a fortune, and then other times they would net maybe $3,000. So, but they always seemed to have, like when they hit the trains, it seemed like they knew what the trains were carrying before they ever hit the target.
Well, I was going to go there, and I'm sure that people have asked you about this before, is that it would seem to be that this is quite organized. Like you say,
Yeah.
This was something that there could have been some major backers of the James and the Younger brothers to continue and allow them to survive and do what they were doing. Do you know the history of, because it seems to me that this goes beyond revenge. This goes to some kind of a program that they're involved with somehow. Have you studied that as well?
Yeah, we've looked in different, we've looked at every angle we could think of. There's a lot of angles that there's still a lot of mystery involved. When you research them, gold had, they didn't lose any money.
Oh, so Well, that could have been something that was maybe standard. You know, in those days they would maybe insure their funds. I don't know, but you wonder if there's any collusion going on there. That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm getting some feedback.
You're getting feedback of myself or you?
I think it's my voice.
Okay, all right.
Sorry about that.
Well, you can turn down your volume a little bit if you want, and it might help because we're doing fine here on this end. We can hear you just really well.
Okay.
Whatever is good for you and not distracting for you.
I'll let Teresa answer that question while I grab my headphones.
Yeah, try that. Yeah, Teresa, is this something that you have gotten into documentation about? What kind of research have you done yourself?
Well, I have focused more on Jesse, like the evidence that we've been compiling to prove that he didn't die as stated in April of 1882.
Okay, so you've done more the forensic way in trying to determine the story is true that he didn't die, obviously.
Oh, yeah, correct. Yeah. And I think that was the main thing that we wanted to focus on for us for this book. You know, we get that it's hard when history has said one thing, hey, this is what really happened. You know, it's hard for people to be like, okay, wait, this is what history says. And it's hard for people to want to open their minds to, you know, that there could be another truth out there. So we kind of like to back it up because with the 1995 DNA exhumation, we're like, if you don't believe our theory, that's fine. We get that. But at least re-examine the findings in the 1995 exhumation.
Well, let's talk about that. Tell us what happened.
Yes. Well, it was basically, I hate to say it, but it was a very shady. It wasn't scientifically done in the correct manner. It was very shady stuff that was happening.
Yeah, well, the guy they had head the exhumation was well, he wasn't even a doctor. He was Professor James Starrs. He was a law professor, and he wasn't a forensic expert. He wasn't a forensic anthropologist. He had no qualifications to deal with that type of work. And he his name was James Starrs. He headed the exhumation, made a big show out of it. The guy who was in charge of the Clay County Parks director at the time was Stephen Caruso. He's an attorney today, and was then. But Stephen Caruso was quoted as saying the whole exhumation was a tawdry sideshow. They made a show of digging up the grave. When they dug up the grave, they found male and female bones. The casket didn't match the descriptions of the casket Jesse was said to have been buried in. The Clay County Parks Service, in 1978, the curator of the James Farm, for example, they did a little exhumation of the original grave of Jesse's original grave, or the guy who was passed off as Jesse. They did an exhumation of that grave, dug around in the front yard and around the grave, found a hog tooth, a dog tooth, a human tooth, and some animal bones. Kept them in a Tupperware jar and passed a lot of fragments of bones off to their friends and stuff. Kept the rest, along with what they said was a lock of his hair. And that was in 78. Then Jesse was buried originally at the James Farm. In 1902, he was exhumed and moved to the Kearney Cemetery in Kearney, Clay County, Missouri. In 1978, they did the exhumation of the original grave, and that was an amateur job itself. Kept what they found in a Tupperware bowl. Then it became part of the possession. Well, Stephen Caruso, who was the Clay County Parks director, or Clay County Commissioner, sorry, he had the hair. He had possession of the hair and the tooth that was said to have been Jesse's. First of all, there's no, they found a tooth in a yard. There's no verification that it belonged to Jesse or even any of the family members. But that said, they had the tooth and the hair. Stephen Caruso didn't like the way the exhumation was going. He called it a tawdry sideshow. He didn't want to turn it in, but James Starrs got a court order they got a court order telling Caruso that he had to hand it over for DNA testing. Caruso told my mother and I in person the hair they sampled wasn't the sample of hair he had in his possession. He pulled the hair from his friend's head, who at the time, his name was John Hartman, and he was the Clay County Parks director. So Stephen pulled the hair out of John Hartman's head and submitted that as the hair sample. And he said he didn't give us details on the tooth, but he said the tooth they tested had basically the same sneaky origins. It wasn't the tooth that he had in his possession. So this hair that came from John Hartman's head and the tooth were tested at Penn State University in their lab. They got DNA and claimed that it matched a known descendant of Jesse's, or the James family, Robert Jackson. If you look into Robert Jackson's genealogy, it's very questionable at best. I mean, it's not even strong enough to stand up in court as him being the legitimate descendant of the James family. So everything about it, they had a law professor playing the role of a forensic anthropologist. They didn't have the right tooth, right hair. The origins of the tooth and hair that they did have didn't even have a chain of custody with it. It was done by an amateur guy at a museum, just digging up the yard, mixed with animal bones. And the genealogy they did doesn't even back up. So, go ahead.
So basically, Professor Starrs based the 1995 DNA results on the tooth. They said the tooth is will tell the tale of the exhumation, and the tooth wasn't even from the right source, nor was the hair. So he compared the unreliable source of the tooth with the descendants that are not even for sure related in a direct line to Jesse, and he based it all off of those two findings. So everything he tested was very questionable.
Also, when they asked him, well, why didn't you just exhume Jesse's mother? Since you're looking for mitochondrial DNA, which is passed down through the female line, why didn't you exhume his mother and get a sample of her DNA instead? If since they weren't sure on, the questionable origins of the bones in the grave they dug up, they weren't even sure if that was Jesse's or not, because tombstones had been moved over the years to try and thwart souvenir hunters and people. They didn't want somebody digging up his body and putting it on display somewhere like they used to do in carnivals. So they asked him, why didn't you exhume Jesse's mother? His answer was, the law in Missouri stated that you couldn't do that unless there was a suspicious death. We looked up the laws. There was no such law. Mom called the Attorney General's office in Missouri. There was no such law. So, and later he admitted to embellishing, which is, a nice way of saying he lied about that to cover his story.
Okay, well, let's get to the bottom line of what you're trying to tell us. You're saying that this guy was trying to prove that the DNA for Jesse James was found, and so he was killed, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. They were doing it to back up the historical version, and everything they did can be, and no pun intended, shot full of holes.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like even their own analysis proves that it wasn't Jesse James to begin with, so they're grasping at straws at best, trying to link this DNA to the traditional story. So that's fascinating.
Exactly. And after all the years of researching, gathering evidence, our family photos, and all the verification we've gone through as far as we can go, we've got more evidence than they have.
By the way, is there any DNA evidence of him later in life that would be able to corroborate your story that he didn't die? Our
mother tracked down a lady who was a legitimate everybody knows, everybody agrees, both sides know she was a legitimate descendant of the James family. Her name was Sue Laura Hale, and she's passed away now. But before she passed away, her doctor in California took a sample of her blood, and through strict chain of custody, sent her a sample of her DNA to a DNA bank, a doctor we use in San Antonio. He does work for the feds and different, the state police and different other organizations. But they have her DNA on record, strict chain of custody. They took a sample of my mother's and compared them, and it shows a definite relationship, which is more DNA proof than the traditional story has. According to him, we need to go step by step, each of our, like from my mother to her father, from him to his mother, and from her to Jesse. Just, step by step to prove that each person is legitimately connected and shown to be connected through DNA.
Yeah, that would be, wow, what a project that would be. But
Yeah.
Here's the idea being is that the traditional story, we're going to get into this after the break. I just want to pique your brain here on some maybe where we can go next in the next half hour of the show. But I think we want to get into why was this false scenario perpetrated on the public that he was assassinated in the first place. I mean, that's going to be an interesting thing to think about, and whether indeed that whole scenario might be linked to these Templars and the whole idea of the gold that maybe was lost there. I think this is getting curiouser and curiouser as we go here. So listen, hang on to your seats and mute your microphones on your end here, and we are going to be right back with Spaced Out Sunday in just about 6 minutes. Talk to you soon.
Cold drinks, great food, and the best music in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is the place to be, open until 2 a.m. nightly. Everything on the menu starts at just $6.95. Who serves food that cheap anymore? At the Moose, you'll never know who you'll run into. Rock stars, actors, athletes. It's the place everyone wants to be. So join us at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for something new to push your limits? Look Beyond the Spectrum, a new docuseries featuring some of the best researchers in the world when it comes to everything from UFOs, government cover-ups, and strange humanoids. Truth seekers Stephen Bassett, Jeff Meldrum, Jack Casher, and Stanton Friedman, among others, all chip in to bring their knowledge to you. Beyond the Spectrum can be found on Amazon as well as Tubi TV. Tell us what you think on our Amazon page.
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. For more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
At spacedoutradio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightlines Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines report on the Spaced Out Radio website and let's figure out what's going on together.
Need that weekend supernatural fix? Look no further than Spaced Out Saturday right here at spacedoutradio.com. I'm Stacey Edwards.
And I'm John Edwards. Each Saturday night, Stacey and I are going to bring you the best in paranormal, cryptids, UFOs, you name it, and we're going there.
It's all about the experience and to share the knowledge with all of you.
So tune us in every Saturday night on Spaced Out Saturdays, starting at 9:06 p.m. Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hello, Space Travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do? What to do?
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Spaced Out Sunday, and I am your host, Michael W. Hall. And we are here with the last remaining James gang, Teresa and Dan Duke. This is a fascinating show about their great-great-grandfather, Jesse James, and the younger brothers, and all of that Wild West stuff that happened back around the Civil War and shortly thereafter. And the potential myth that Jesse James, well, it's been forensically, I guess, proven now at this point that Jesse James did not die of an assassination or a gunshot wound to the head. He lived to be almost 100 years old and died in 1943. And we're going to get into that details right now. So, Dan and Teresa, welcome back to the show.
Thanks.
Hi.
Boy, I don't know about you guys, but this is, when I was a kid, when you went to the movies, you remember that? I'm 67 years old. I was born in 1952, but literally you'd pay your quarter to get into a film, a movie theater, and you could literally spend all day long there as a kid, and you would have all the old Western, trailers and serials that you would see before the main feature. And of course, you heard about the James gang, the Younger gang, these folks that were out there almost as if they were Robin Hood figures, in those stories in the old days. But we're learning more about the motivation of your great-great-grandfather, Jesse James, in initially starting out as revenging the death of some of his family members by some of those pre-Civil War raids that were happening in Missouri and Kansas, that literally then went into the whole idea of those guys going after much bigger fare in robbing trains and banks. Is there a transition that you guys know about how he ended up heading in that direction after the Civil War, or was it just because he couldn't turn himself in because they were too notorious during the guerrilla group that he was involved with?
Go ahead, Teresa.
No, you go.
No, you.
This is brother and sister, you guys. They always do this. So, thank you for you guys fight it out.
I'll let you field this one, Teresa.
Well, I just think that my personal opinion is that they did try to turn themselves in. That didn't work out. They weren't granted amnesty. So, when they started robbing banks and trains, they became, they were bold and daring, and those acts bolstered them up to like a, Robin Hood status with some people. He became a legendary figure, and I just think that it was just, at that point, it was hard for him he couldn't just go back. He got so grand, and I think it was at the point where he couldn't go back to being Jesse James, his normal self. So, when the opportunity presented itself to fake his death, I think he took it and, lived out the rest of his life in Texas as James L. Courtney.
So that's fascinating. So we were talking about before the break the motivation that would have been there to push the traditional story that he was killed might have come from Jesse James himself.
Yeah, well, a lot of people don't know, and it's well verified. In 1879, he tried to fake his death, and it was a failed attempt. The way they tried to pull that off, Jesse and Frank and some of the others were riding, they were riding across. It was in Indian territory at the time, now Oklahoma, but they were riding near, it was in Indian territory. George Shepard was said to have shot him in the back of the head, and he rode into the nearest town to collect the reward. And when the posse went out to try to find the body, there was no body to be found. And so, they couldn't find a body, therefore it didn't happen. And they found out later, after George Shepard had gotten, left, that it was a faked death. It was an attempt to fake his death. They would question his mother, Zerelda. Reporters would go out and question her, and she would say, yeah, my poor son died, and he didn't die. And there's news reports, like one from the Galveston, Texas News, saying that any verification of Jesse's death made by his mother should be held it shouldn't hold any water because she said it so many times in the past. And she was just trying to help her boy get away. But at the same time, he had tried to fake his death. That didn't work. And then when the opportunity presented itself in 1882, it was because, Jesse's first cousin, one of his first cousins' name was Wood Height. He was a part of the gang also. and it said that Woodhite bore a striking resemblance to Jesse. Most of the law and the Pinkerton Detective Agency, who had been chasing Jesse for many years, and the rest of the gang, they didn't have an accurate description of Jesse, and they didn't know what he looked like. So that also helps a great deal in faking your death. I mean, when they don't know what you look like, who are they going to go by other than family and friends? So the only people who could identify the body were his closest friends and family members, and they were all on his side. They would have helped him. And if any had thought, maybe of ratting him out, I'm sure they would have been very afraid of doing something like that, especially with such a notorious and allegedly violent gang. So, the only people to verify the identity of the body were his closest friends and his family members. And the way the whole thing went down, Woodhite, who had been a part of the gang, he was his first cousin, bore a striking resemblance to Jesse. He had a little love affair going with Bob and Charlie Ford's sister, Martha Bolton. And there was a fight that happened at Martha Bolton's house between Woodhite and a farmhand named Jim Gibson. And I think, Bob and Charlie were there also. The gunfight happened, and I think it had something to do with a little love triangle with Martha Bolton. But Woodhite was killed. And I think they used that opportunity to use Woodhite's body and pass it off as Jesse. He was dead. They couldn't do anything about it. And why not use it to help Jesse live a peaceful life like he'd been trying to do? So
that was the 1882 story when
Exactly.
Woodhite died, and he looked enough like the family lineage of Jesse that they just went with that, huh?
Yeah, and also the assassination itself, the way they claim it happened. They said that Jesse got up on a chair and was dusting a sampler on the wall. It was kind of like one of those little things, Home Sweet Home, and he needed to either straighten it or dust it. So he took off his guns, and he was supposedly a very paranoid man. He took off his guns and turned his back on Bob and Charlie Ford, got up on the chair to dust it, and they shot him. End of story. That's the traditional version. Well, if you've ever been in the house, and it still exists in St. Joseph, Missouri, the ceilings are very low, and you would have to be an extremely short person to have to stand on a chair. I mean, a person of 5 foot in height could stand on that, wouldn't have to stand on the chair as low as the ceilings were, especially if you're holding a feather duster, which also has a long handle on it. So that sheds a little doubt on the story. Then there's a hole in the wall that somebody put the hole in the wall, and they said, one of the guys who used to own the place said the owners would put a little chicken blood on the floor and sell splinters to tourists as Jesse's blood on the floor. So, but after the death, Bob and Charlie Ford turned themselves in. The authorities show up. They went to Kearney, which is 20-25 miles south of St. Joseph, got Jesse's mother and brought her up to identify the body. She walked in, took one look at the body, and said, "Gentlemen, you are mistaken. That is not my son." She walked outside. Somebody led her outside, and a few minutes later, she came back in crying, screaming, and cursing the poor, the cowards who killed her boy. And it was just too different. It was completely different, right? I mean, why would she walk in and say that's not him? And then she comes back in a few minutes later, cursing everybody in the room and mourning her son. Then the lady he was married to, Jesse was married to, she was in the house at the time along with their alleged 2 children, who I believe were Woodhite's children and not Jesse's children. And the lady he was said to have been married to was Z. Mims. She was another first cousin.